I got married 2 months ago to the most wonderful woman I have ever known. Sarah was everything I could ask for kind, genuine caring. We met at work 3 years back, and from that first conversation in the break room, I knew she was different. She loved me for who I was, not what I had. And that is exactly why I never mentioned the 3 apartments I inherited from my grandmother. It was not about trust. It was about protecting something pure. 1 week after our wedding, my mother-in-law showed up at my door with a notary in a black suit, carrying a leather briefcase. That is when I knew my silence had saved me. But before I tell you how that decision saved my marriage and my future, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments below, hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more real stories like this one. Trust me, you will want to stick around for what happened next. Let me take you back to where this all started. My grandmother Helen was one of the strongest women I ever knew. She came from nothing, worked 2 jobs most of her life, and somehow managed to buy 3 apartments in downtown over the span of 40 years. Back when she bought them, the area was not fancy. It was affordable. But she had vision. She always told me property is freedom, Tony. Nobody can take away what is in your name. Those words stayed with me long after she passed away 18 months ago. When Grandma Helen died, she left those 3 apartments to me. I was her only grandson, and we had always been close. She raised me on weekends when my parents worked. She taught me how to cook, how to save money, how to be smart about life. Those apartments were not just property. They were her legacy, her life's work handed down to me. 2 of them were rented out, bringing in about $3,000 a month total. The third one, a 1-bedroom place on the 3rd floor of a building near the park, that is where I lived. The total value of all 3 was somewhere around $1.2 million. It was life-changing money, generational wealth. But when I met Sarah 6 months after my grandmother passed, I did not bring it up. Sarah worked in marketing at the same company where I did IT support. She had this bright energy, always smiling, always asking how people were doing. Not in a fake way, but because she genuinely cared. We started talking during lunch breaks, then coffee runs. Then we went on our first date to a small Italian place downtown. She never asked what I did for money. She never cared where I lived or what I drove. We just connected. Our relationship grew naturally over 2.5 years. Sarah thought I rented the apartment where I lived. I never corrected her because it never came up in a way that felt right. I was not hiding it out of malice. I just wanted her to love me for me. And she did. After 2 years, I proposed to her in the same park where we had our first real conversation outside of work. She said yes immediately, tears in her eyes, no hesitation. That moment was pure. No money involved, no calculations. Just 2 people in love. Then I met her mother. Linda was 50 years old, a widow who raised Sarah alone after her husband died when Sarah was 15. She worked as an office administrator and lived modestly in a small house on the edge of town. I respected her for what she had done, raising a daughter on her own, making sure Sarah went to college, giving her a good life. But from the first dinner we had together, something felt off. Linda asked a lot of questions. What do you do for work? Tony. How much do you make? Where do you live? Do you rent or own? What does your family do? Do you have savings? I answered carefully, keeping things vague. I told her I lived downtown, nothing fancy. I worked in IT, made a decent living. My parents lived in the suburbs. I did not lie, but I did not give her the full picture either. Something about the way she asked made me uncomfortable. It felt less like a mother protecting her daughter and more like an interview for a job. Sarah apologized after that dinner. She said, "Mom is just worried. She wants to make sure you are stable, I understood that. I really did. So I let it go. But the questions did not stop. As we planned the wedding, Linda kept bringing up finances. Maybe you two should buy a house together after the wedding. What about your future? What about children? You need to plan ahead. Tony, I stayed calm. I told her Sarah and I were fine with the apartment for now. Sarah backed me up, saying we were not in a rush. But I could see Linda was not satisfied. One time, about a month before the wedding, Linda pulled me aside during a family barbecue. She asked me directly, "Do you have any savings, Tony? Any assets?" I looked her in the eye and said, "I am doing okay. Nothing extraordinary." She nodded, but I saw something in her expression. Doubt, maybe, or suspicion. That is when I made the final decision. I was not going to tell anyone about those 3 apartments, not until I was ready. Not because I did not trust Sarah. I trusted her completely. But I did not trust Linda. I had a feeling that if she knew, it would change everything. Our wedding day was beautiful. Small, intimate, just close friends and family. Sarah wore a simple white dress, and I wore a navy suit. We said our vows in a garden venue surrounded by people who loved us. Linda gave a speech during the reception. She said, "I am giving my daughter to you, Tony. Please take care of her." I promised I would. I meant every word. There was no drama that day. Everything felt right. We went on our honeymoon to a coastal town about 2 hours away. Nothing extravagant, just a week in a small bed and breakfast near the ocean. We walked on the beach, ate seafood, talked about our future. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me and said, "I do not need anything fancy, Tony. I just need you." I held her hand and felt grateful. She really did love me for who I was. When we got back home and settled into our apartment, Sarah did not ask about ownership or paperwork. She just started unpacking her things and making the space ours. It felt natural. 8 days after we got married, on a Saturday afternoon, everything changed. I was home alone doing laundry and cleaning up the kitchen. Sarah had gone out to get groceries. It was a normal, quiet day. Then the doorbell rang. I walked over, opened the door, and froze. Linda stood there with a man I had never seen before. He was middle-aged, wearing a black suit, holding a leather briefcase. Linda smiled at me like nothing was strange. "Hi, Tony. This is Mr. Patterson. He is a notary. Can we come in?" I stared at her, confused. A notary for what? Linda did not wait for me to invite her. She walked right past me into the apartment. The man, Mr. Patterson, gave me an apologetic nod and said, "Good afternoon, sir." I closed the door slowly, my mind racing. What the hell was going on? I followed them into the living room. Linda sat down on the couch like she owned the place. Mr. Patterson stood near the door, looking uncomfortable. I stayed standing, arms crossed. "Linda, what is this about?" She smiled again, but it was not warm. "We need to talk about some important documents, Tony. Now that you and Sarah are married, we need to make sure everything is in order." I felt my stomach tighten. "What do you mean, in order?" Linda reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of papers. She set them on the coffee table. "These are documents to add Sarah's name to this apartment." She gestured around the room. "We need to make it official. Joint ownership." I blinked at her. "Add her name, Linda. This is a rental. I do not own this place." The lie came out smoothly, but inside I was panicking. Linda's smile turned into something else, something sharper. She leaned back and folded her arms. "Tony, I did some research. This apartment unit 3C in this building is registered under your name. You own it. I checked the property records. So let us not pretend. My heart sank. She knew. Somehow she had dug into public records and found out. I felt trapped, cornered in my own home. I looked at Mr. Patterson, who was staring at the floor, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Then I looked back at Linda. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were cold. So she continued. We should add Sarah's name to the deed. It is the right thing to do. You are married now. Everything should be shared. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Linda, this is something I need to discuss with Sarah first. This is not something we do with a notary showing up unannounced. Linda's face hardened. Sarah is my daughter. I am looking out for her best interests. You love her, do not you? Of course I do. Then this should not be a problem. Just sign the papers and we are done. Simple. But it was not simple. My mind was spinning. If I signed these papers, Linda would know I owned this apartment. But what about the other two? Would she dig deeper? Would she find out about those too? And then what would she pressure me to put Sarah's name on those as well? I felt the walls closing in. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. Sir, this is a standard joint ownership transfer. It protects both parties in a marriage. I turned to him. I appreciate that, but I am not signing anything today. Linda stood up, her voice rising. Tony, are you hiding something from my daughter? I stood my ground. Linda, I appreciate your concern, but this is between me and Sarah. This is our marriage, not yours. Mr. Patterson stepped forward slightly. Ma'am, maybe we should give them some time to discuss this privately. Linda ignored him. She stared at me, her jaw tight. If you have nothing to hide, Tony, then just sign the papers. Why is this such a big deal? I felt anger bubbling up inside me. Because this is my home, Linda. And you brought a stranger here to pressure me into signing legal documents without even talking to me first. That is not okay. Linda's face turned red. I knew something was off about you. What else are you hiding? That is it. I walked to the door and opened it. I need you both to leave. Now. Mr. Patterson quickly gathered his briefcase. Ma'am, I think we should go. Linda did not move at first. She stared at me like she was trying to read my mind. Then she grabbed her purse and marched toward the door. We will see what Sarah has to say about this, Tony. She stormed out. Mr. Patterson followed, muttering an apology. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it, my heart pounding. Sarah came home about 30 minutes later, her arms full of grocery bags. I helped her bring them inside, my mind still racing. She could tell something was wrong immediately. Tony, what is going on? You look like you have seen a ghost. I set the bags down on the counter and turned to her. We need to talk. We sat down on the couch and I told her everything. I started with the 3 apartments. I explained how my grandmother had left them to me, how I had kept quiet about them, because I wanted our relationship to be about us, not about money. I told her about Linda showing up with a notary demanding I sign papers to add Sarah's name to the apartment. Sarah listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back, her face pale. 3 apartments. Tony, why did you not tell me? I looked down at my hands. I was going to. I just wanted you to love me for me, not for what I have. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over and took my hand. Tony, I married you because I love you, not because of any apartments. I felt relief wash over me, I know. But your mother, Sarah, she brought a notary to our home. She was trying to force me to sign legal documents. Sarah's expression shifted from shock to anger. She brought a notary here without asking us, I nodded. She said she did property research. She found out I own this place. Sarah stood up, pacing the room. I cannot believe she would do that. That is completely out of line. I watched her process everything. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen. "It is my mom," she answered, putting it on speaker. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about your husband." Linda's voice was sharp. "Mom, I already know. Tony told me everything." There was a pause. "Then you know he has been lying to you." "He was not lying, Mom. He just did not mention his properties. That is his choice." Linda's voice got louder. "His choice, Sarah. He owns 3 apartments. 3, and he never told you. That is not honesty." Sarah took a deep breath. "Mom, it is not about the money." "Of course it is about the money," Linda snapped. "Do you know what 3 downtown apartments are worth these days? That is a fortune, and he kept it from you." "I do not care," Sarah said firmly. "I love Tony. The apartments do not change that." Linda sounded exasperated. "Sarah, you are being naive. This is marital property now. You have a right to it. You need to protect yourself." "Mom, we just got married. Why are you already talking about protecting myself? What are you implying?" Linda did not back down. "I am being realistic. What if he divorces you down the line? You will get nothing. You will walk away empty-handed." Sarah's face flushed with anger. "We just got married last week. Why would you even think about divorce right now? Because I am your mother, and I know how the world works. Men hide assets for a reason, Sarah." I interrupted, unable to stay silent. "Linda, I am not hiding assets to screw anyone over. I kept them private because I wanted Sarah to love me for who I am, not what I own. And frankly, after today, I am glad I did." There was silence on the other end. Then Linda said coldly, "You have no right to speak to me like that." Sarah cut in. "Mom, he has every right. You ambushed him in our home with a notary. That was completely inappropriate. I was trying to help you, Sarah, by pressuring my husband to sign legal documents without discussing it with me first. That is not help, Mom. That is control." Linda's voice cracked slightly. "I raised you to be smart, to protect yourself. I do not want you to get hurt. I appreciate that, Mom. But this is my marriage. Tony and I will make our own decisions. You do not get to interfere like this." There was a long pause. Then Linda said bitterly, "Fine. But do not come crying to me when this blows up in your face." Sarah's jaw clenched. "Goodbye, Mom." She hung up. For a moment, we just sat there in silence. Then Sarah turned to me, her eyes soft. "I am so sorry, Tony. You do not need to apologize. Your mom was just trying to look out for you." "In the worst way possible," Sarah said. She crossed a line. A big one. I reached for her hand. "I should have told you about the apartment sooner." She squeezed my hand. "Why did you not?" I sighed. "Honestly, your mom. The way she kept asking about money, about assets. I got a bad feeling. I did not want those apartments to change how she saw me, or how she treated us." Sarah nodded slowly. "And you were right. If she had known from the start, she would have been all over it." "Exactly. I wanted to protect what we have. The apartments do not define who I am." "I know that," Sarah said softly. "And I love you for you. Not for what you own." "That means everything to me," I said. She leaned against me and we sat there together, the weight of the day finally lifting. After a while, Sarah asked, "So what do you want to do about the apartments?" "What do you mean?" "Do you want to add my name to them?" I thought about it. "Sarah, those apartments were my grandmother's gift to me. They are my responsibility. I want to take care of them. But I also want you to know that if anything ever happens to me, they are yours. I will update my will to make sure of that." Sarah looked at me. You do not have to do that. I want to, I said. Not because your mom pressured us, but because you are my wife. And when I am ready, when it feels right, we will make it official. She smiled. Okay, when you are ready. The next few weeks were tense. Linda tried calling Sarah several times, but Sarah did not answer right away. She needed space. Eventually, Linda sent a text apologizing, but it did not feel sincere. It was more like, I am sorry you are upset, not I am sorry for what I did. Sarah and I talked about it and decided we needed to set boundaries. We agreed that Linda could not interfere in our financial decisions. She was welcome in our lives, but not in our bank accounts or property records. When Sarah finally called her back, she laid it out clearly. Mom, I love you. But you crossed a line. If you want to be part of our lives, you need to respect our boundaries. Linda resisted at first, but over time she started to come around. It was not easy. The relationship was strained. But Sarah held firm, and I supported her. Gradually, Linda began to accept that she could not control everything. She still visited, but the tension was always there under the surface. For me and Sarah, though, things got stronger. Going through that crisis together showed us what we were made of. Sarah stood up to her mother for me. That meant more than any piece of property ever could. I also realized something important. My decision to stay silent about the apartments was not just about protecting my assets. It was about protecting the purity of our relationship. Money changes how people see you. It changes how they treat you. If Sarah had known about those apartments from the start, would she have fallen in love with me the same way maybe? Probably. But there would always have been that question in the back of my mind. By keeping it private, I let her love me for who I was. And when Linda showed up with that notary, I understood that my instinct had been right. If Linda had known earlier, she would have been in our business from day one, pushing and scheming and trying to control everything. 6 months after the wedding, life settled into a rhythm. Sarah and I were happy. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our plans for the future. I eventually told a few close friends and Sarah's siblings about the apartments, but only in casual conversation, nothing formal. It felt natural by then. And I finally updated my will, making sure everything would go to Sarah if anything happened to me. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Linda slowly warmed up again. She still had her moments, but she learned to bite her tongue. I think she realized that pushing too hard would only drive Sarah away, and despite everything, I forgave her. I understood that she was just a mother trying to protect her daughter, even if her methods were completely wrong. Looking back now, I think about that day she showed up with the notary, and I feel grateful. Grateful that I trusted my instincts. Grateful that I kept those apartments private until the time was right. If I had told everyone from the start, it would have opened the door to all kinds of problems. People would have treated me differently. Linda would have been involved from day one. Our relationship would have been tainted by outside pressure and expectations. But because I stayed silent, Sarah and I built something real. Something that was not about money or property or what I could provide. It was just about us. So here I am, almost a year after getting married. I still live in the same apartment. The other two are still rented out, bringing in steady income. My life has not changed much on the outside. But on the inside, everything is different. I am married to a woman who loves me for who I am. I have boundaries with my mother-in-law that keep our relationship healthy, even if it is not perfect. And I have the peace of mind knowing that I made the right call. Keeping those apartments to myself was not about mistrust. It was about wisdom. My grandmother taught me that property is freedom. But she also taught me something else, even if she never said it out loud. She taught me to be careful, to protect what matters, to know when to speak and when to stay silent. That silence saved my marriage. It saved me from a lifetime of Linda's interference. It gave Sarah and I the space to build a foundation based on love, not money. And in the end, is that not what matters most? Not every secret is a lie. Sometimes keeping something private is the kindest thing you can do. It protects the people you love from the noise and the pressure and the expectations that money brings. My grandmother left me 3 apartments, and I am grateful for them every single day. But the real inheritance was not the property. It was the wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent. And that wisdom, more than anything else, is what saved me. If you found this story helpful or relatable, I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever kept something private to protect a relationship? Or have you been in a situation where family tried to control your finances? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe for more real-life stories. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you all the wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent in your own lives. Take care.